Welcome everyone to another episode of First Canada Live. Hope you had a great weekend. Good morning, good afternoon. I am your host, Karthik. Glad to be here with you for what should be another great show. I'd like to introduce our co-host, second time co-hosting. We have Param from Team 4946, the Alpha Dogs, Dean's List winner at the championship last year. Param, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. I'm really pumped to be back on the show. Second time is going to be absolutely great. We've got a great lineup I'm super duper excited for. And how are you doing, Karthik?
I'm doing great. Had a weekend to recharge, but I'm ready for some more First Canada Live action. So, Param, you've been watching every episode, and the Youth Council has been really big as a instrumental part of this show. What have you enjoyed the most so far? Was there one segment that really stood out to you?
Well, I think it's just been incredible hearing from so many different people who have been involved in First in so many different capacities. And you get to hear from all these mentors, these alumni. And one segment that really stood out to me as being something super cool that I think everyone should watch was the segment that we did with Jeff Lee, who's actually on First Canada board, which was a super unique insight into what that was like. And that's something you don't really normally get to see when you're just in the day-to-day of competition, which is something that I really enjoyed. And I think everyone should check out that episode.
Yeah, and all our archives are available on First Canada's YouTube page, so go head on over there and take a look. But we got a really good show today too, and I think we might be able to top some of the ones in the past because, listen to this roster of guests we have. We have Libby, Kamen, lead mentor from Team 1923 and first personality, so that's going to be fabulous. We got two great team showcases. We got Team 7558 Alt F4 from Toronto coming on. They're a robot this year. Did you see it up close, Param?
I actually did. I was lucky enough to make it to Humber for that one day, and oh my gosh, I must say, one of the most beautiful robots I've seen this season, and I'm super duper excited to have them on the show this time.
Yeah, and for a second-year team especially,
exactly.
Just to come out out of the gates like that. We got a First Canada program showcase today on First Lego League. We've talked a lot about First Lego League. Almost every one of our guests has actually been a First Lego League alum. So we're going to hear all about First Lego League, what the program is like, what it takes to start a team, what it takes to run a team, and all that goodness. We got a great panel to discuss that. And on our first segment, we have World Championship finalists last year from Detroit. They're at the Detroit Championship in Detroit. They're actually from Hamilton. Team 5406 Celt-X with a team showcase of their unrevealed robots. So that's going to be really good. So just a reminder to everyone, if you got any questions for myself, Param, any of our guests throughout the show, drop them into the chat. We'll do our best to get to them at some point. And also just keep in mind that the whole point behind First Canada Live is to bring some positivity and some energy to our community right now. So let's make sure we keep our comments positive and, of course, graciously professional. But I think now it's time to get started with our first segment. So I'd like to welcome in Team 5406 Celt-X from Hamilton, Ontario. They've won 6 blue banners in their history, including, as we said, in 2019, the Archimedes division at the championship, and they went on to be championship finalists, coming as close as you can get to winning the championship without, I guess you could lose on a tiebreaker. That's another story we don't even want to get into right now. So I'd like to introduce from Team 5406, we have Victoria, Emma, and Andrew. Hey, hello, how are you?
How are you doing, Karthik? Amazing.
Thank you so much for being on the show. Thanks and agreeing to showcase your robot. Also, everyone, Victoria is kind of a big deal in the First community. She is the artist behind FRC Doodles, the comics that have gone viral on Instagram and beyond. So I hope we get to see a couple doodles maybe in the presentation in there somewhere, tucked in there. Maybe, Victoria?
We'll see, Karthik.
All right. So how about you just take it away? Show us what you got.
Great. So who are we? As you might have heard, we are Team 5406 Celt-X from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. This was our 6th year as a team. Our rookie year was in 2015. And each year we continually strive to perform at the highest level while embodying the spirit of gracious professionalism and assisting the teams around us to the best of our ability. We are the stewards of the Robodrome, and we also co-host the Stanley Cup Championship.
Okay, so hi, I'm Emma. I'm in grade 11. I work on design and manufacturing, and I'm also the operator. So this year, our team had 2 main competition season goals. Every year, our goal is to be one step further than we did in the previous season. And last year, we actually did have a goal to make it to Einstein's. Not a lot of people know this, but after Ontario District Champs, I decided that we were going to win Worlds, and nobody took me seriously until we almost made it there. Unfortunately, we didn't, but that became a goal this year. To field the most competitive robot we could, we also have a goal to have 0 on-field breakdowns. We do this by systems checks before every single match to make sure we don't miss anything and our robot is running as smoothly as possible. We go on to the next slide, please.
So the workspace that we build out of is the Robodrome, which is a shared build space given to us by our board. It's outfitted with a full machine shop and a nearly full-size practice field. So we worked closely with the school board to outfit the Robodrome and to shape it what it now is today. We secured grant money and outfitted the machine shop with a bunch of complex machines. Like we have a CNC mill, we have a router, we have a laser cutter, stuff like that. Since this building is a shared board building, it serves as a workspace for the multiple FRC teams in our board. However, we invite teams from all across Ontario to come and practice with us, use our facility. All we ask of them is for them to bring us a team shirt, and we will display that on our t-shirt wall. And as of now, we've collected over 20 t-shirts. So that's just absolutely amazing. Something we hosted for the very first time this build season, or rather first week of competition season, was an event called First Aid. And this was an event where rookie teams or any team that needed a little bit of extra help before competition, we invited them to come to the Robodrome, and whatever they need help with, mechanical, software, electrical, stuff like that, we help them out and try to get them up and running.
Victoria, one question for you. You mentioned that you have all that machinery there, that non-board teams can come to practice the Robodrome. Are they allowed to work on their robots on the machinery, or like can they make parts there with your supervision? Or
so we have a mentor in the shop at all times. So they supervise when people are using the tools. I'm not sure if they're allowed to use the more advanced tools. Can anyone?
Okay. Just curious, I'm sure that some of the teams out there, might not know about this opportunity and would love to, especially if there's machines that they don't have access to at their own school. That'd be a great opportunity for them.
Yeah, we definitely encourage teams to ask for help when they need it. For the bigger machines, if you're not trained, it would probably be one of our teammates helping make your part, just for safety reasons. But yeah.
Either way, that's a great option for teams. So thank you for doing that.
Hello, I'm Andrew, also in grade 11. I do mostly mechanical and design. And going into build season, our main strategy is to first figure out all the rules in depth about this year's game and how it can be played. In order for us to be able to then try and figure out every single possible play or cycle that robot can perform during a match. And then try and figure out how valuable that cycle or play could be based on how much time it take, how many points it get us, and then how difficult it will possibly to do that.
And in order to do this, we also have a human game to make sure we understand it fully. And we have 3 tiers of robots. Our teammates act as robots. We have the Brave Little Toaster, an average Ontario team, and a world championship winning team. And we figure out how they would affect their alliance scores and what kind of robots they would be and how they would play the game. This year, we estimated an average game would be around 80 to 100 points, and we hoped by the end of the season, we could contribute 150 to 200 points to our alliance. Can we go to the next slide, please?
So as a team, we do a lot of prototyping. We don't like to go from simply like CAD to robot, that's it. We CAD a lot of our prototypes, and we test them out, then we go back and CAD them until we finally come up with something that we feel is ready to build and will be good on the robot. So 3 things that we prototyped that did not end up on the robot that were scrapped were the buddy climb, the linear shooter, and the pop-up. So the buddy climb was something that really worked well for us in 2018. And the reason we wanted to do a buddy climb in 2020 was for RP assurance. So RP assurance is where we want to ensure that every match we get that climb RP, which worked well for us, really well for us in 2018. But the buddy climb was scrapped in 2020 because it simply did not package well, and we just didn't have enough weight.
One of the main decisions we had to make for this year's robot was whether we were going to have a linear or hooded shooter, and we prototyped a lot with the linear shooter. It was fairly accurate, but ultimately we decided to go with a hooded shooter because it was much more consistent for how we wanted to play the game. So if we could play the video, this was on, I think, day 4. It was the first time we got a power cell in the inner port, and then by day 5, we were prototyping our hooded shooter.
So the last main,
Could we go one side back, please?
so one of the last main things that we prototyped was mounting our shooter on top of a lifting mechanism in order for our short robot to be able to shoot over top of the control panel into the power port. After further design, we realized it was a bit too difficult for us to fully incorporate into our robot. As well, it was a bit heavy and we did not have the weight for it. So we decided to go with a simpler option of just driving under the control panel a few more feet to get similar time shots.
So this is our reveal video for this season. We named our robot Mo because it looks like the microbe obliterator from WALL-E. And there's a little picture there. Show.
So that was our 2020 robot, Mo, and we're just going to be going through Mo and talking about some of the mechanisms that can be found on Mo, except for the color wheel spinner, because that didn't quite make it on in time.
Victoria, I wanted to share one comment we have from chat. I thought you named your robot after the superintendent from the HWCDSB, who's responsible for robotics and STEM. And that comment is from none other than your superintendent, Morris.
Thank you.
I think it's a pretty good story. I think you should go with that one.
Oh, man. Okay.
Okay, so this year's drivetrain is a 6-wheel single-speed West Coast drive. It has Flip Neo custom gearboxes, and our gearboxes and rails were made on our CNC router.
So Danny demanded this year that we have base lock, since it's a shooting game. If you're not familiar with what base lock is when you set the wheel PID to continually correct for the last position that you were in. So if you get knocked around a little bit, the wheels will continually try to correct to where the position you were last in. So basically, the drivetrain is locked. This is useful for shooting and to combat defense. You don't want to get your shot messed up while getting defended. So base lock is just a way to combat that. Next slide, please.
Our goal when designing the intake was to be able to make an intake that can efficiently pick up as many balls as it can in a short amount of time. And what we came up with was a full width intake that can pick up 3 power cells at once. It is cut out of HDPE plates that were laser cut in-house and feature custom 3D printed pulleys that are mounted on our rollers. as well, our intake moves in and out using pneumatic cylinders and bearing sandwiches, which allow our intake to extend out and intake from the loading station.
So we pulse the rollers while we're shooting for two reasons. One, so the balls don't get jammed, they get to shuffle around a little bit. And second of all, our hopper is just gravity. It's slanted into the robot, but there's nothing actively pulling on the balls to push them deeper into the feeder and into the turret. So we need to pulse the rollers to push the balls back there.
I just wanted to mention a point that was brought up in the chat. It says this was the most redesigned part of the robot. Want to shed some light onto why that was?
For the most part, it was trying to make sure that all the power cells weren't getting jammed. A lot of the original designs had an issue of power cells jamming on the side parts of our intake where it leads into the hopper, as well as being able to efficiently get them through the hopper into our shooter. So we had to spend a good few weeks just constantly redesigning and making minor changes to it. At first, when designing our hopper, we decided to test out using brushes. And after multiple attempts of trying to get them to work the way we wanted them to, they were slowing us down quite often, as well as sometimes the power cells would get jammed in between the brushes. So we decided to remove them in our final design as we were able to run without them.
And in order to avoid jamming power cells when we were feeding them to the turret, one side of our serializer actually spins 10 times faster than the other, so that one ball is being pulled in at a time.
So our feeder is actually two parts. It's a wheel that pulls the ball in from the serializer, and there are also powered rollers to prevent jamming. It used to be a Lexan sheet, but the balls like to stick to the sheet and each other, so powered rollers just prevent them from doing that. And our feeder is also velocity controlled. We don't pass the balls when the flywheel isn't spinning up or it isn't actively powered, because then it just jams. And we also have a security mechanism where we limit how quickly the balls are passing through the turret, and it's velocity controlled, so it limits the max RPM rate.
One. That one had like a bit of.
So the cool thing about our turret is it's basically all made in-house. We have the delrin on the sides is laser cut. The aluminum plates at the bottom are made on our CNC router, and we have the motor controller and limelight mounts that are 3D printed. We have about 300 degrees of rotation and about 90 degrees of hood motion.
So the turret has the coolest software stuff by far, I think. So we have two absolute encoders, one on the turret itself and one on the hood. So if we brown out or lose comms for a moment, then we can always find our zeros, and we can find our zeros from any arbitrary location. We also have auto targeting with the limelight. We have a quadratic regression, so we can find the hood angle and RPM of the flywheel from anywhere on the field using the TY value from the limelight. And we also installed soft limits. So we have about 300 degrees of rotation, but that's probably a conservative, it is a conservative number, because we installed the soft limits to make sure we don't break our umbilical while we are turning the turret. So yeah, it's worth noting that we could actually like turn 360 degrees if we wanted to. It's just a matter of us like extending our umbilical, because in our practice spot, we can turn 350 degrees. So that's something cool about that. Next slide, please.
So originally we had two individually powered linear bearing arms, but they didn't package well, and they were kind of on the heavy side. They weren't working the way we wanted them to. So instead we have a virtual 4-bar linkage, and it's actually powered by only one Neo because we ran out of motors on our robot, and it locks with a bicycle brake, which we took from our 2015 robot.
So we actually have an automated climb. Oh, do you want to play the video? Okay, so we actually have an automated climb where the driver just has to line up to the switch and then press a button, and the arms go to go to an arbitrary height. Then the operator from there can adjust the arms and press another button and we're climbing. So that's our automated climb, but we also have a manual climb just as a backup. This is also to achieve our goal of 0 on-field breakdowns. It's good to have the manual just in case the automated fails for some reason. So here are a bunch of electrical things that we think are cool and really want to highlight. So in 2018, we stopped using Anderson connectors on our CAN because we used them out of spec, and that caused 2018 2 different failures. One of them was our 2018 robot Tipsy throwing a cube over the driver station wall. So we didn't want that to happen again because there was a wire break in the Anderson, in the umbilical. So we switched to IDC connectors, which are in spec for CAN.
Yeah, so our umbilicals, we have 2 on our robot, 1 going up to the turret and 1 on our intake, and it's just a nice way to keep all of our cables together and organized. We also use DIN rail on our belly pan and with custom 3D printed mounts that just clip on. It's really easy. In between matches, if something's broken, we can fix it right away.
We stopped using PoE on the Limelight because it introduced more points of failure. You could lose the Limelight if the Ethernet was just slightly off. So we found that wiring straight to the PDP was a better solution.
Yeah, and we also have an Ethernet switch just to further that 0 on-field breakdowns so that nothing has to be unplugged when we tether on the practice field. And we used terminal blocks this year because 15 slots on our PDP were used by motor controllers and we still needed to power the encoders in Limelight. We go to the next slide, please.
So through the terminal block, you're able to power the Limelight and the encoders all. How's that set up?
The encoders are on the terminal blocks. The Limelight is in the PDP.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and the terminal block goes to the VRM?
I think it's wired straight to the PDP. I could be wrong on that though.
But which slot on the PDP?
The 16th one.
So the Limelight and the terminal block are going to the. I'm just trying to capture how you're getting all of that into the PDP. Is it all going into one slot on the PDP, or?
It's going into the terminal block, which goes into the PDP.
Okay, so the Limelight's not going directly to the PDP. It's going to the terminal block.
I'm pretty sure, yes.
Okay, cool.
So our design goal for autonomous this year was we wanted a path following program that could get us a reliable 8 and more ball auto. In 2018, we had great path generation, but terrible path following. And in 2019, we had terrible path generation, but great path following. So this year when WPI Lib released the Ramsey controller for path following, we decided that was the best of everything and we wanted to use that. So we used the Ramsey controller for path following and trajectory generation. We use the new encoders that are on our drivetrain and the NavX. We utilize sequential and parallel commands to make sure we're making the best use of our time and not idling in places where we don't need to be. And sometimes we utilize driving while shooting. It's not in this video. This video is our 8-ball auto, but we utilize it in our 7-ball. And these were starting points implemented just so we could see whether it worked or not. And it does work. We wanted to use it later for 9 and 10 and that kind of auto, but it never happened because the season ended. So this is our 8-ball auto.
So just going back to the electrical for a second, you talked about how you stopped using Anderson connectors because they're out of spec for CAN. What spec is this? I think this would be a really cool thing for our audience to know if teams are actually using Anderson connectors incorrectly.
I think if I remember correctly, I think Anderson connectors are too large for what we were using before.
Too large according to what though? Like
The
Just
gauge of
too
the
large,
wire.
Yeah.
So the gauge of the CAN wire was too small to be using on Anderson's.
there we go. Okay, cool. So you stopped using Anderson connectors just on your CAN wires, not like across the robot.
Yeah,
You still
we
use it for
still
other
use them.
electrical
We just
connectors.
use IDC on the CAN.
IDC on the CAN. Okay.
And here we've got a question from the Twitch chat. Why did you decide to use Omni wheels if you already have a center drop from the West Coast drive? Does it, help with the turning even more, or did you find that it wasn't enough to just have the drop?
Yeah, it helped with the turning. So the Omni wheels actually got quite destroyed on the rendezvous point, but it was very helpful for controlling how we turned, especially when there was a lot of power cells on the field and we only wanted to be picking up 5. So we found that it was better for control.
How much drop did you have this year?
An 1/8 inch.
Okay, cool.
And
That's
how was your hood powered? Just a quick question.
Pardon? Sorry?
So how was your hood actuated? Was it just pneumatically, just 2-position, or was it fully adjustable?
It was fully adjustable. It was gears custom cut on our laser.
Cool.
That's just a fabulous robot. Just another one of these robots that we see on the show where it's just like, man, I really wish I got to see it play. And I hope we will have that opportunity at some point. Stanley Cup, hope the world is more under control and we can do this and we can get back to playing robots, because that would be amazing. And this is one of those ones that I just really, really want to see on the field.
Yeah.
For you, Celt-X, what was that feeling like when you found out that the season wasn't going to happen?
It was definitely upsetting. I was looking forward to competing. I know it's kind of out of our hands. I just hope that we eventually get to end up playing with the robot.
And are any of you seniors, or grade 12s rather?
We're all in grade 11.
So you're all back for another one.
Yeah.
All right. Before we go, is there any last thing you want to tell us about your robot, about your team? Any shout outs you want to give?
Thank you, Mr. Hootzel, for watching.
Yes.
Let's go, Mr. Superintendent.
Well, I have to say, one of the coolest things is you just see Mr. Hootzel Morris, the superintendent, at all these events, not just supporting Celt-X, not just supporting teams from his school board, but just supporting FIRST in general. He's just this huge, passionate advocate of the program. And that's kind of the excitement and the energy that we love to see. So that's really, really cool. And of course, there's no surprise to me that he's here watching FIRST Canada Live and he's in the Twitch chat, just chatting it up. So cool that you named your robot after him, right?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Celt-X, for being on the show. You're just one of those teams that just inspires constantly. It was so cool last year, at Ford Field, seeing all the Ontario teams, all the Canadian teams coming together to cheer for you and 1310, and also for 930, and for the whole alliance, but specifically for the Canada side to it. It was just a really awesome experience, and I can't wait to see this robot compete at some point. I can't wait to see Celt-X back down there on Einstein at some point. It's all great stuff. So thank you for being on the show. And we have another great segment coming up. But before we get that, let's play a video for my alma mater, the University of Waterloo. All right, we are back for another segment. Param, you ready to do this?
Oh yeah, ready as I love be. Let's go.
Have you met our next guest for story time?
I have met our next guest online and over, brief meetings and various events, but I'm very excited to, get to do this as an interview as a story time segment.
All right, well, let's bring her out. We got first alum and first MC and game announcer, drive coach and lead mentor for Team 1923, Libby Kamen. Hey, Libby.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me on First Canada Live. I'm really excited to share today with you guys.
We're super pumped to have you on the show to tell stories, just to find out all about what you do, what you've been doing in first for someone who's probably been in first for a longer percentage of her life than anyone else, because you've basically been there since the beginning.
I don't remember some of those very early beginning years, but I'm told I was there. I'm told I picked up Maize Craze corn and wanted to play with it. So I guess that counts. Field reset volunteer 92, as you do. But no, I've been in the first community my entire life, and it's done a lot of shaping of who I am. And it's something I'm very grateful for and glad to be a part of and share with you guys today.
Well, we're excited that you're here. So please tell us this story from the very beginning, when you're picking up Maize Craze corn, to everything in between and where you are now, Libby.
Sure. So I obviously, my uncle, Dean Kamen, and Dr. Woody Flowers started first way back when. That means I grew up with a family that volunteered for the program. My father was a judge for tournaments through the Epcot days, through the World Championship, all the way through 2012. He judged the Chairman's Award at the championship, determining the Hall of Fame. And so that meant that I ended up going to events all the time, right? My family was volunteer.
And also, so you just grew up in first culture, because you
Yes.
said your father was the championship chairman's award judge. So you kind of grew up in that, not just the world of gracious professionalism, but like totally like everything that these Hall of Fame teams are doing, you were aware of as a very young age to your adulthood.
It's definitely something what I so distinctly remember my dad doing. And of course, like when you're, 6, 7 years old and your dad's like, hey, we're going to Disney World for the weekend. You're like, cool. And you don't think about like why that, it's for the robotics thing. What do you mean you guys don't go to Disney World for robotics every year? It's like, but what he would do is he would like find a team that he trusted and just be like, watch my kid for a little bit. So I would get to hang out with teams. I just remember being really young. The first one I remember was Buzz 175. And of course, as like an elementary school child, I saw the big smiley face and I was like, I want to hang out with that team. And so my dad was just like, great, here you go, she's yours. And they gave me like a little Buzz shirt and I walked around with them. But it gave me a really cool insight into first as a kid, as I would just be in teams pits and like, it was my dad just trying to get free babysitting out of a bunch of teenagers. But it was so cool because I would get to sit there and be like, what does that do? Like one that really sticks out to me too is we're from New Jersey. And so growing up, we would go to the Mid-Atlantic Regional. At the time, there was only the one. And I would hang out with Team 25. And then when I got to high school, when I got to grade 9 and started my team, 25 was our mentor team. But I knew a lot of what they did. I knew a lot of the first processes already because I would just be this kid in their pit. Like, how does that work? How do you do that? Right. And I'm sure it annoyed the heck out of the high schoolers who were trying to compete with their robot on the field.
But probably like, not.
This kid won't shut up. But it was cool because I felt like when I got to high school, I did not do First Lego League. I did not, First Tech Challenge was still in a pilot stage when I was getting to high school. But my first experience on a team was running my own FRC team. And I think because I'd been growing up around teams and seeing their processes, I kind of knew what to do vaguely, not with any level of strong execution, but at least I sort of knew what FRC was and how to kind of create that experience for my teammates. I got to high school. Well, before I got to high school, I was in 8th grade, and in my town, our high school and our middle school are across the street from each other. So in 8th grade, I decided, chat's right. It was, I have my years wrong. It was not a pilot yet. Anyway,
yes and no. History.
Wasn't it pilot 05
history's been rewritten a few times, and now
True.
the FBC years were all considered 05, 06, 07 were all considered pilots technically, which is odd because
so I'm wrong, but I'm not wrong.
They didn't feel like pilots when 11-14 was winning those world championships, but
okay. Yeah.
If you want to erase them from history, that's fine.
It's definitely all I know is I didn't participate. It wasn't sort of widespread at that point for me. But when I was in 8th grade, I was knew I was going into high school next year. And I remember when you talk about growing up in first culture, I remember going to sort of like in our school district, we have this club fair where the 8th graders go over to the high school one day and they, learn about what they can get involved in, chess club, stage crew, the play, it's all the activities are sort of laid out. And so when you get to school, you're able to say, this is what I want to commit my time to in high school. And I remember saying like, where's the robotics team? And it sounds so funny, but I genuinely as a kid thought, you're not aware of like, oh yeah, our mission is to change culture and get first accessible to so many different students. I genuinely was like, well, every school has a robotics team, right? Like that's what you do. What you do when you get to high school is you do first. It was just something that didn't kind of click for me. And we didn't have a team. So I went to the principal and I said, hello, my name is Libby and I'm going to be the captain of the robotics team next year. And he said, we don't have one. I said, I know. We're going to start one. And the New Jersey senior mentor at the time actually came to the school and sort of like helped do the pitch and explain what FRC was. And was like, I promise she can handle it. And we had a lot of support from other New Jersey teams. But I started my team, was a student lead for 4 years. And I think part of the reason I sort of knew I was the captain, not only because I was sort of starting the team myself, but also that I'd had FRC experience. So in my head, it wasn't about me getting to build a robot or, getting to put my creation on the field, but to create a first experience for other students. And I think that was really cool to be able to create. And now 1923, the Midnight Inventors from the West Windsor Plains Rural School District in New Jersey are over 115 students every year from both of our district high schools. And I'm proud of being able to sort of build that for the kids in our program now. FRC was not about sort of like me getting to do the thing. It's always been about sort of creating it for other people. And yes, to chat, the senior mentor was Paul Kloberg. So he would sit in, he actually was a teacher at a different school and he was our lead mentor for the first year. He would come to our school, sit in the room that we had and grade his paperwork from his high school while my friends and I worked on our robot. So our first mentors were Paul Kloberg, my dad, and my friend Katie's dad, who is still involved with our program as well. Both Katie Stevens, now Bunka, and her dad are mentors on our team.
And your mom.
And my mom, and Dr. Kamen, of course.
You're going to get in trouble for forgetting.
I know, I sent her the link to the chat. Mom, I'm sorry.
Ruth,
all right, moving on. Can we talk about something else before my mom roasts me?
That I remembered Dr. Kamen and you did not.
I'm sorry, Mom. I love you. I actually there's something. It's just a different question you were going to ask, or I was going to talk about my mom. So we're just going to say that it's going there.
Okay.
But no, my mom is involved, of course, for all 15 years. This is our 15th anniversary season as a team.
That's absolutely incredible. And 15 years is a long time to leave a lot of legacy. And I suppose it's going to be a very unfair question to ask, considering that you have so many incredible moments and experiences to pick from. But I was wondering if you had one favorite story that you wanted to share with the Twitch audience today.
I have two, but one's quick, I promise.
You can tell as many stories as you'd like until 12:58.
Fair enough. I was gonna say I have two stories, and one is I feel like I have to mention it here because you can't beat going to Einstein with your dearest friend in the world. But beyond just the sort of general shout out, 1923 making it to that level of championship performance completely overhauled our process and how we do things as a team, being able to learn from high level teams and how they work at a championship level. I think it's completely changed how 1923 works. So that's like my favorite story because it was a great experience for me, but also it changed my program pretty heavily. But in general, I think my favorite FRC story, and I just realized I sort of switched what I wrote in categories in my notes, but what my absolute favorite story is, starts off sad but gets good. In at the end of 2012, my dad passed away, and obviously the 2013 season was my team's first season without him as a mentor. Like I said, both my friend Katie and my parents were so involved with the team. My dad was like the woodworker, so he'd always build our field for us. He'd like organize our build shop. He like didn't want to do the robot. He just wanted to like make bookshelves for us. But obviously 2013 was our first season without him, and our kids made this really cool sticker with his picture on it. And it was just like a, memorial thing for him. And of course we passed them out at events, and, in New Jersey and in the Mid-Atlantic region, everyone was like, oh, great. Absolutely. Like Dr. Kamen's been a judge for so long, of course we'll wear the sticker. We'll put it on our robot. And I was like, okay, cool. And, we put it out, brought them to championship, all that kind of stuff. And I was sort of around and doing a bunch of different things at 2013 championship. But at one point, one of my students ran up to me and was like, Libby, we did it. And I was like, what did you do? Did the match go well? Like, what are you talking about? I don't know what you did, but I'm excited for you. And he looked at me and said, we have a robot, one of the stickers on every robot at the championship. And like, that is one of the coolest things about the FIRST community. And I think we've seen it in, obviously this community's been here for a long time, and we're continuing to grow, but we always sort of remember the people that are intertwined with all of us, and we all support each other. Like we've seen the same general outpouring of love and community with Dr. Flowers, and, in FIRST Canada with Runner Better. Like it's amazing to see people share that love and support for each other. Oh, thank you, folks in chat saying they still have their stickers. I still have some if you ever want any. I have a couple every year. But it's just one of those things where I think the FIRST community is so intertwined and so good at supporting each other when it matters the most. That's one of those things that definitely reinforced my faith in the FRC community. And I think that's good. It's a good
I
thing.
think, it's been a long time, obviously, but your father was just such a visual presence at the FIRST championship. And for any team who was competing for the Chairman's Award at championship, it was just like that realization on Thursday when you saw the judging schedule. It's like, oh my goodness, we have Dr. Kamen as our chairman's judge. Because like that was a sign into itself that if Dr. Kamen's interviewing your team has a shot at winning. And just kind of that, seeing him walk into the room, it was just such a cool thing. Like this is long before I even knew you. It was always like such a big deal for 11-14. It's like, oh, we've got Dr. Kamen, we got to be on it. But then every year, I've never seen a chairman's judge come more prepared for a chairman's interview, in that it's not, like a lot of times you go into chairman's interviews and these people know nothing about your team. And that's cool because you want to tell them your story. And that's what it was. Dr. Kamen knew everything about 11-14. Every initiative that we were going to talk about, our students, he just knew about it already and was ready with detailed questions. It's like, it was clear that he was doing more than just reading the essay. He was going and seeking out information and all this sort of stuff. And I think it's just a really important reminder for chairman's teams. Is like a lot of judges bring that same level of energy that Dr. Kamen did. And it's really important that you need to be on your game because they're learning about your team everywhere.
Oh yeah, he had like every year, this was pre-digital delivery of the chairman's essays, but you get that binder of all the essays that you had to judge. And I've pulled some of those off the shelf. We still have them around the house, and there's like notes in the margins and like things underlined to go check later. It's something that's really detailed. And in case, you're a little jealous that you don't have the Dr. Kamen championship judging experience, the other Dr. Kamen is also still a championship chairman's judge. My mom took his spot sort of on the Hall of Fame decision-making committee. She is also an excellent judge. She learned from the best. So you will still get your Dr. Kamen judging experience. Just the other one, which was also, confusing component of my childhood. Can I talk to Dr. Kamen? Not helping. Which one?
Which one? It's like in an Indian family. There's like 17 different doctors. So it's like, oh, sure.
I'll just pick one. I'll surprise you.
Yeah. Which uncle? We talked about your some of your favorite stories, but do you have like a proudest moment in all of this? And especially as someone who is a Woody Flowers finalist award winner, a dedicated mentor, there's obviously many proud moments. Is there one that stands out that you'd like to tell us about today?
Oh, I don't know if I have a particular like this one happening, but I think it took me a while as sort of like a young adult to get a handle on mentoring and like what does it mean to be a role model and sort of create that structure for your students. So every single time my kids are smarter than I am, I'm just very proud of them. They took the experiences that we've had in the last couple of years at a competitive level and really changed our process over in a way that, you know, a mentor can tell you, hey, you guys need to make a more, you know, robust technical binder, or you need to document this better, but it's just going to kind of pass over. But to see individual students sort of taking charge of this process improvement, I was not as good of an FRC student as they are, for sure. So that's something that I'm, in terms of like proudest moments in first, is just sitting back and watching my students change their team. I will always be there to like open the door and hold the structure together. But at this point, they're really defining what 1923 means. And I love it. Their enthusiasm, the way that they dive into things is just like, if all I did was set a couple of bricks in the foundation for that, then I have done some good in the world. And that's what I love about First.
And I find that so incredibly inspiring. Like, I'm over here on the show surrounded by two legendary mentors around me. And I feel like you're right over there, you know, giving the best experience you can for these students. And you're definitely a role model that they can look up to, because you're, you know, laying these foundations for things that are going to change their lives, and First is going to shape their lives. This is like their growing years. But now I want to ask, who has that been for you? Who has inspired you when you grew up and, you know, changed your life?
I think I have a bunch of people in this wheelhouse. In the First community specifically, there have been so many mentors that when I was a young mentor, reached out and tried to like help me create that foundation. Karthik, of course, being one of them. I actually had some just amazing conversations, specifically with female mentors and female leaders as well. Kirsten from 341, Amanda Morrison, just people who like looked at me and were like, hey, we're going to help you get your stuff together so that you can be a better mentor and be a better person in the community. Outside of robots, I work with an awesome sort of like digital media entrepreneur, content creator. Her name's Kristen. She's on the internet as Kitty Plays, and I'm sure some of the folks in my chat or in this chat who are from my community are going to start spamming Kitty emotes, but she's one of those people who just brings like joy and light to everything. And I think it has nothing to do with robots, but has brought a different perspective into how I work as well, which is good and lovely. So I don't know if I have a specific inspiration. I looked up to a lot of astronauts and scientists and stuff when I was a kid. I met Sally Ride and it made my life. And then I roasted my dad because they were both judging the first championship. And I went, Dad, this is Miss Sally. She's a doctor and an astronaut. You're just a doctor. And I like ruined my dad's whole career with one line at like whatever 7 years old or however old I was that year. And
let's be clear, your dad was one of the top pediatric oncologists in the entire world.
But he wasn't an astronaut, Karthik.
Yes,
Miss Sally was an astronaut.
That is true. Set the bar.
The bar is so high. Oh my goodness.
We talked about your journey, but we did jump over one piece, but I think it's really important. We got a lot of people who are doing university applications, like my good friend Param right now, going through that process. What was your university journey like?
Yeah, so this is actually interesting because I wasn't sure I always wanted to share this with the First community. I started at Clarkson University as a mechanical engineering student. From, you know, being in First, I was like, oh, that's the path I need to take. That is what it is. And I got there and I did some internships and I did a lot of projects, and I realized that mechie wasn't my space. And I was really enjoying more the like customer side, the user side of whatever it was we were working on. And I had a long conversation with my academic advisors and a bunch of really smart people in my circles, right? And I switched. I actually went to sort of a technical communications, technical marketing role. So my degree is in communications and digital media. My master's is in marketing for technology. But Clarkson was such an awesome place for me. I loved the university. I went originally because there was a lot of First ties and a lot of sort of like, you know, community that I understood, right? Clarkson is a small-ish university and a lot of engineering, and like, it's basically the First community at a different scale, right? It's your people, right? I've got my nerds in the building. But I went to school and I tried mechie and I realized I didn't like it, and I knew I could be involved in technology in a different way. I wanted specifically to stay adjacent to engineering and technology, but to use the skills that I had. And for a while I struggled with that. I went, oh, well, doesn't that make me like not a first alumni? Like I'm not an engineer, but that's not how it works. I am
Can you say that louder for the crowd, and can we make sure someone clips this in Twitch for everyone to see?
Exactly. Like you don't have to be an engineer to be a first success story. I am a communicative professional. I know what I'm doing and I'm good at my subject matter. And my first journey helped that. It amplified that. I actually, right now I'm working professionally, mostly in community management and social media marketing for games, and sort of like gaming industry spaces.
And you have your master's in that field as well, right?
Yeah, marketing for technology. Yeah. So I'm sort of this the technology that I'm in right now is mostly gaming and streaming industry. So, but community management is the study of how people are like gathering online and what spaces do you do that. And like the first place I did that was Chief Delphi. Like I made a lot of mistakes as a dumb teenager on Chief Delphi, and then I learned, and now I'm a professional community manager.
You say that, but Chief Delphi, that website's it's actually past its teenage phase of its life, but I would say it's a dumb teenager as well. So
yeah, that explains the new look, right? It's not a phase, Mom. No, it's definitely, I remember for a while it was like, oh, you're a first alumni, like what do you do? And I'd kind of go like, oh, like media, and that's not like I've earned that spot. I'm a first alumni. I am not an engineer, but I am still a first success story because I used my first experience to find what I love and what I'm good at and do that professionally. And I think it took me a while to realize that that was okay too. And now I just can't like scream that from the rooftops loud enough. Like,
to me, I just think that anyone who comes through this program is automatically a success story. But just if you can leave this program and take the characteristics of gracious professionalism with you, that's the win that we're all looking for. That's
Absolutely.
how we're going to get this culture change. There's a really good question, Libby, from chat that I think that will resonate with you. How do you feel when the seniors that you've mentored have graduated? The first students who I really mentored are graduating, and I have mixed feelings. Glad to see them succeed, but I'm also sad to see them go. I think this is this is not really talked about, but I know you and I have specifically talked about this before, so I'd love to hear your feelings.
Yeah, I mean, when the students that I've worked with graduate, it's always, I think it's really interesting because from a mentor perspective, you get into this selfish headspace of like, oh no, like they were really good at the engineering notebook. Who's going to do it now? Right? Like, I don't want to lose that kid. They're amazing. But also something I try to bolster is like, you can go take that amazing and be that amazing someplace else for a little while. I'm proud of them. I'm sad. I cry every single year when I see our seniors graduate. One of the things I try to capture before they leave is that they teach at least one teammate, like what it was that they did that made them so awesome. And I think as long as you're capturing that, not in a way that like they have extra homework to do after they graduate high school, but just in a way that you're creating generational knowledge across your FRC team. It's okay to let them go and let them fly. I have one of my last year's Dean's List finalists for Mid-Atlantic Championship is off to Northeastern next year and is kind of in a space where he's like, I need to go do school and not do robots. And I'm like, yes, do that. You can volunteer. You can come back and hang out with us anytime, but go enjoy that university experience. And first will be here. So I actually try, I do as I say, not as I do, because Karthik knows, we've been friends for a very long time, that I was a university mentor, and it took up so much of my time. So a lot of like advice from a seat of having done it in a way that was less healthy. But it was, I get sad when my kids graduate. Every single class, I've got all these special stories and wonderful kids, but they're going to come back. I actually have an alum that comes and visits every single time he's home. He was one of our strategists in 2015, Karthik. And he just comes back and visits and is like, hey, is robotics happening today? Can I come hang out? The advice that I have though, Erwin, is if you have some sort of space where your alumni can get together, like we have a Facebook group and a Discord for our teams, you can keep your alumni informed and in the loop without feeling like you're dragging them back to being in high school and being on the team. Whatever it is you can do to sort of like capture that conversation and keep them at least somewhat visible on your team, they'll come back and visit. and then you can cheer them on and tell them how awesome they are and all the stuff that they did.
Yeah, and Erwin, the other thing to think about is that mentorship doesn't end when high school ends for these students.
Yeah.
They're gonna constantly need stuff, and also if you really have that, like, you know, bi-directional relationship with the students that you're working with, they'll continue to inspire you as they go on to school, and they'll be giving you updates on what they're doing, and the relationship just kind of evolves, you know. And I know I've definitely had that sadness before, where we've had like these great graduating classes where I'm like, man, I'm gonna miss these kids, and like some of them, they stick around with the team, and others just go, but you still hear from them, you know, periodically, and it's just great to hear about them doing awesome. Even if you don't hear from them directly, you see a LinkedIn update that they're doing something awesome, and it's just like, yeah, this is cool. Like, you are like, you know,
yeah, like I knew you were gonna do that awesome thing. Like,
yeah, like, and
that was there all along.
I have like 8 million success stories I could just talk about right now, but like, yeah, they're just, it's nice to see. Or even like, you know, when you get that text message, you know, it's like, hey, are you okay right now? Is social distancing being okay for you, from like an alum from like 8 years ago? It's like, yeah, this is kind of cool. We are running down on time here.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I kind of like when my alum become like my friends, right? They're like young adults now, and I can like see them when they come home, and we can go get dinner. It's like the best thing ever.
It is. It's a unique part of this program, but it's really cool, and it's like, it's special. We are running down on time here, Libby, but we're just wondering, do you have any questions for Param and I?
I don't know that I have a question for you guys, other than like, I cannot wait until sort of the world opens back up and I can come see you guys in person at a Canadian event soon. I have absolutely loved being on the show with you guys, and I appreciate the invite to share some first stories.
I'll just say that 1923 is in the district system, and district teams are allowed to play in other districts. Param, how about you give Libby 30 seconds on why 1923 should come to Ontario next year?
Well, let me tell you about this, right? You know, Ontario, the most competitive district in the world. We have some of the most world-class teams, top competition. And let me tell you, we have a sense of community, we have a sense of family, and we would love for your team 1923 to join our family. You know, we're all family, you know, we're all GP, we're all the first community, but you know what? Ontario would love to welcome you guys. We always have an open slot here. You know, come down to Waterloo, come down to Ryerson, come down to any event you want. We are here to welcome you with open arms.
How can you say no to that sales pitch? I was just going to say we have samosas.
I'm in. I'm 100% in, and all the 1923 kids in the chat are also in. I know that that's something we want to do for sure. I have been visiting ever since I went to school up by the border and hanging out with Karthik. Like I've been visiting Canadian events for what feels like forever now, and I love them. They're my favorite part of the year. So I gotta bring my kids with me and our robots with us. The competitive part is a little scary. I'm not driving all the way up there just to get stomped, but maybe we'll win some stuff together. That would be a really fun time.
Have seen your robot this year. Trust me, it would not have gotten stomped. Okay, Libby, 30 seconds to tell us about FMA Plus, what you've been working on.
Absolutely. Speaking of having seen a robot no one else has for 1923, FMA Plus is a lot like First Canada Live for teams in the First Mid-Atlantic region. We're doing some robot showcases and some videos and interviews with teams. We do 4 or 5 teams a week on Saturday nights on the First Mid-Atlantic YouTube channel. I hope that you guys will come stop by and look at the FMA Plus teams. We've got some awesome lineups for the next couple of weeks, including 1923, and a lot that teams can be proud of. So looking forward to hosting that, and appreciate the chance to plug it here on First Canada Live. Karthik. Thank you so much.
We love the fact that we've had a bunch of FMA people in our chat watching First Canada Live, and I'd love to see some of our Ontario folks watching the FMA Plus, so we can see just more awesome teams and hear these great stories. Libby, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank
you guys
having you up here, always doing cool stuff. First Canada, whether it be the CNE event, come and check things out, or supporting Canadian teams at championship. We know you've always got your Canada safety glasses with you. It's
of course, always. Thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of the show, and I will see y'all in the chat.
Absolutely. And now, before we get to our next segment, let's take a look at this video from one of our sponsors, Enbridge. All right, we're back for another segment. We just did a story time, but it's back to the robots, and we've got a really good one here. Param, you saw them up close and personal at Humber. So did I. Introducing Team 7558 Alt F4 from North York, Ontario, winners of the Humber College District Rookie All-Star Award in 2019, second-year team this year, winner of the Engineering Excellence Award at the Humber College District event, and trust me, it was well-deserved. Honestly, like, one of the things I love about a good FRC game is when there's a huge diversity of design. This year we saw a lot, we had like spin dexters or V-hoppers, turret, non-turret, tall, like there was some archetypes, but this robot kind of shattered all of that. So we're bringing out Robert, Alex, and Justin from 7558 Alt F4 to tell us about their robot. Hey everyone, how's it going?
Good, thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming on in between your busy schedule. I know that Bayview Glen's been back on with online classes and all that jazz. So thank you for making some time right here. We need to know everything about this robot.
Of course. So as you said, we're Team Alt F4 7558, and this is our 2020 robot.
So just a little bit about our team. As Robert said, we are Alt F4. We're from North York in Ontario, and this is our second year. In our first year, we had a lot of success at both our Humber and York district events, and then finally district champs. And we were hoping to really move past that and potentially go to Worlds and do a lot of great things there. And we were on track to accomplish that. We have 50 student mentors on our team from grades 9 through 12, as well as 3 mentors, one of whom was on the show last week with Noeen, as you remember. And yeah.
And this is our robot this year, Viper. Of course, we're 118.254 pounds. In our down position, we're 28 by 28 by 27. And our robot this year is kind of a low and a high bot. So you can see here, it moves itself from a low position that fits under the trench to a high one that can shoot over defense and shoot over the color wheel. This is accomplished through the articulating indexer, which is of course fed by a full width intake. We also have a color wheel mechanism, a turreted shooter, and a solo climber.
We could go on to the next slide, yeah.
I have lots of questions, but I want to let you finish before I even get to them.
Sure.
So I'm sure you're going to answer them. But like right away, that design inspires a lot, let's just say.
So just a quick note on all the slides, those are CAD renderings. The whole robot was done in SolidWorks, who's one of our sponsors as well. So we'll get into the strategic design priorities, I guess. So right at the beginning, we knew hang was a top priority. So we were always looking for a way to incorporate that with the rest of the robot. And we'll get into more about why we chose to integrate that with the 4-bar that you see in the picture later on. We wanted to get inner port shots from the trench so that we wouldn't get plate defense, touch ground pickup, that's super fast. And this was the thing right at the get-go. We saw it was important to have to fit under the trench. So obviously be below 28 inches. And another priority we had was to shoot over tall defense, because even if you're still in the trench, you could still be getting defended by another bot, which would interrupt the view from the limelight or something like that. So we wanted to be, we see that's the advantage of being a high bot, but with a low bot, you can have much faster cycle time by going under the trench. And we wanted to do the color wheel too. We can go to the next slide.
All right, so just before we get into the prototypes, I want to address the elephant in the room. A lot of the videos are going to be vertical, and that's because our social media influencer mentor, Noeen, was there for a lot of the taking of these. So that's kind of why you're going to see this fun aspect ratio. And I'm just going to go through the prototypes that we had briefly. So probably the most repeated prototype that we worked on was the shooter, which one version you can see here on the left. We tried a lot of different things, 4-inch wheels, 6-inch wheels. We tried different back materials. We tried different rollers, Lexan, aluminum at one point we tried. And we wanted to try to get to a point where we were able to make both fast shots and consistent shots. And we found that a good balance there was with 4-inch wheels and 6-inch wheels. We actually found that our 6-inch wheel shots were more accurate at range. But because of height constraints and fitting under the trench, we decided to go with 4-inch so that we could fit under the trench and be able to achieve our low and high bot goal, and also have a good shooter that could work. The second video here is a 4-bar prototype that we made. And this one was to test the indexer and the conveyor belt that would take the ball through the 4-bar and up to the shooter. One problem that we thought we would have was compression on the ball. As the forebar moves up, obviously the two limbs get closer and closer, and that actually causes the belts to rub against each other at high points of compression. So what we decided to do was our belt material is actually two pieces of duct tape that are looped around each other, so that both the sticky faces are facing each other, and the outside on both sides is the smooth material. So whenever it rubs against itself, there's no significant increase in friction, but it can still carry the ball because of the force between that and the ball. And of course, the last prototype is our intake prototype. Here we're using 2-inch 3D printed Mecanum wheels with one roller, and then one more with one Mecanum roller, and then one more roller feeding it into the forebar. What this let us do was center the ball outside of the robot, and then actually have it all centered as soon as it enters the forebar. The ones in the video here aren't the ones we went with. We ended up going with the Chief Delphi 3D printed print in place Mecanum wheels that 2910 posted. And we actually had really good results with these. We found that these were faster than the ones that we would pin ourselves and eventually cap. And we found that these at very close spacing, with about a 16th between each Mecanum wheel, didn't actually produce any significant delay from catching or snagging or anything. So we decided to go with this type of intake.
Just a quick note for the prototypes. You notice everything is cut out of, we have a CNC machine, and all of our prototypes were designed from like 1/4-inch plywood that we had left over from last year's field. And the same with the robot, it was all made in-house on the CNC, the aluminum, the plastic, the wood.
Yeah, so everything you see on the robot, we actually machined in-house. All the parts, all the box tubing was done on the CNC.
We can go to the next slide. So our drivetrain, it's a West Coast drive, custom box tubing. We have gearboxes, which are 2-speed shifters, which allow for 9 feet and 18 feet per second. And our dropper is pretty small. The rocker, it's only 16-inch. And we found initially this was a pretty big issue. We were running 4 Falcons. So when we were trying to do turns, the Falcons would produce their high-pitched noise, so they were stalling, and they were turning on their own current limiting system. But we found that over time, it actually, once we started wearing out the tires, it wasn't an issue anymore. So the 16th-inch rocker ended up being a really good advantage because it gave us a lot of grip throughout the whole match.
Were you running into those current limits in low gear as well, or just high gear?
In low gear as well. Even the 9 feet per second was pretty fast. At some point, we were considering changing the gearbox to like a 6 feet and 10 feet per second, but we figured we didn't really have time for that. Let's just wait and see if they were, and we got lucky they did. So.
And did you keep the air pressure the same in the outer wheels as the center wheel?
No. So it says pneumatically adjustable rocker there. I thought we were going to get rid of that, but I guess not. So that means we inflate the middle tire more than the outer 2 tires, so that the rocker kind of increases a little bit more than 16-inch, but just it's not that noticeable. Yeah. So we could go. Just a quick note in the design there, you can see we have the belly pan, which is cut out of 8th-inch aluminum. And then at the front, those 2 big supports, that's what holds the forebar, and it's like a superstructure that's built into the drivetrain, so it's super strong base. And you'll see how that works later.
And that structure actually holds the motors for both the forebar actuating and the main conveyor belt inside the forebar that drives the motors. So that's where they're mounted.
And the gearboxes, they're all custom hidden inside the pieces.
Yeah.
We can go to the next slide.
All right, so this is our shooter and turret. We use 4-inch Coulson and Fairlane wheels, which gives us a weight of about 3 pounds across the axle. The hood is driven by a Neo 550, which gives us about 45 to 85 degrees with range of motion. The flywheels are driven by 2 Neos, about 2-to-1 overdrive. And there's about a 2-inch compression across the bulb. And that gives us 2 inches compression between the back plate and normal to the wheels. So because we're using a plate and not 2 kind of bars, we have more consistent compression. We actually found that that gave us a more consistent shot versus having 2 kind of limbs that extend up and down.
Can I just say, I'm really impressed by your ball return system with the net right there.
That's something we did, us the programmers, the day we found the competition was canceled. So we wanted to just keep cycling our shot.
That's a classic programmer move, by the way. It's like, yeah, I don't want to get up to pick the balls up. Let's
so we can just set up the benches and
loop. Yeah.
We just left him alone for 15 minutes and we came back and this is what we found.
Rule number one, never leave the programmers alone.
Of course. Yeah, and our turret is also driven by a Neo 550. And something that we found out that not a lot of teams do, but we had pretty good success with, was we only had a friction connection between the belt and the turret ring. So there weren't any pins or anything connecting the turret belt to the ring. It was just the tension that we put on the motor against the plate that would then give friction between the belt and the turret ring. And we found that that was enough to drive it. Even if it did slip though, we were able to adjust for that in programming by always adjusting turret position based on limelight values.
And we got this idea from 610. So we found they were doing it too and they had success with it. So thanks to them. So now we'll talk about a bit the 4-bar. So initially, the design concept of the robot was just to be a completely low bot. So we wanted to have an indexer, like you can see on the left, where the balls would get sucked in and it would go through like a U shape and get fed to the feeder on the top. And then as we were designing it, we kind of thought, well, last year we did a 4-bar in our end game where we would climb up onto hab level 3. So we kind of had some experience and we decided, really, this shape, it matches the 4-bar. So if we just make these hinges instead of fixed points, then now our whole robot can extend. And the length of all the belts and indexing system doesn't actually change by much. So we can still hold the 5 balls and feed the balls in the high or low position. So, and the advantage of doing a 4-bar is that we get 20 inches of vertical movement, which means we can use our 4-bar to hang, and we can use it to do the color wheel. So this is minimizing the weight of the robot because we don't need separate subsystems to lift all those different, to do the different aspects of the game. So the 4-bar itself, it's held by the 2 pivot points at the front, which attach to the superstructure we saw in the drivetrain. And you can see so it's driven by 2 Neos, geared down about 130-1, but it also has surgical tubing to neutralize it so that we really only use the power of the Neos during the hang, but throughout the match when we're going up and down, most of the force comes from the surgical tubing.
Alex, question from chat about the 4-bar. How many shots were taken in the high configuration at Humber?
So at Humber, we actually didn't even get to using our 4-bar that much because basically we just finished all the other fine tuning a few days before Humber. So we wanted to get our low shots in as reliable as possible because we saw at other competitions, you didn't really it was a pretty level playing field already. So we thought if we could get a really consistent low shot, that would be good enough for Humber. And then later we would work for the next competition to make a 4-bar high shot. And actually during one match at Humber, just to test it out, we did use 4-bar high shots and it wasn't actually programmed yet, but we just wrote a quick program to test it out and it was working. But you can see in the video on the right side with the GIF. So right after Humber, we got back to programming and immediately now we have full 4-bar up capability so that we can shoot from 20 inches higher.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. You want to perfect one shot before you move on to the next one. And normally when you have a season with multiple events, it's okay to come out with the first event with a limited set of functionality.
And it's good to know that we have room for improvement basically, so that we're not using the full capability of the robot. And going into the next competition, we know that there's certain things we can do better, which in this case would be using the 4-bar up shot. But there were like many times during the Humber tournament where we're stuck in the trench and we're like, oh my God, if we had just finished this like 1 or 2 days earlier, we could just lift the 4-bar and shoot right above the defense.
At least that's validating to you, where you're like, because when you don't have a feature and you really want it, that's when you know that is okay, this would have been useful. So yeah,
so it kind of validated that the idea was good, and the next competition, if it happens, we'll definitely start using it.
Another question in the chat about the 4-bar. Does the position of the 4-bar impact feeding balls around the curve into the shooter?
Not at all. So that curve at the back, it's a fixed frame. So it's one solid piece of 1/4-inch aluminum. And that shape all the way from like the whole 4-bar, really the only part that changed shape is the first pieces with the duct tape belt. And everything past that, so the U shape and then the feeder into the turret doesn't change shape at all as we're moving up and down. And that's where most of the balls are stored anyway. So there's really no difference between shooting high and shooting low. So we can go to the next slide. Yeah.
And the next slide is for our intake. This is something that we actually tested a few different things with. We, at first, when we went to test the robot for the first time, we had 4-inch Mecanum wheels that we kind of hung off the front of the robot and tried to let those center. Unfortunately, we found that those weren't quite fast enough to give us the touch pickup that we wanted. So we kind of looked around and thought around at our prototypes. We also talked a lot with 188, who ended up with a really similar intake. And we found that these 2-inch Mecanum wheels with a 16th-inch space actually gave us the fastest results possible and really good touch pickup. So you can see in the video on the bottom right, that's just Sony throwing a ball into the intake, and it kind of catches it and holds onto it and centers it really fast. None of these videos are sped up. Like, that video is not sped up. That's like how it does it and how it caught it. And we found that this geometry kind of gave us the best results for our touch pickup, and that was the biggest thing that we were looking for. Of course, we have 2 axles. One on the front holds a roller. It's just the 1.125-inch Vex roller. Then behind that is an axle with the Mecanum wheels, and then two compliant wheels in the center. And then on the third one, we have another axle that holds 2-inch compliant wheels that keep the ball from popping out of the intake, which was a problem that we had a lot with early prototypes, where the ball would just jump out of the intake as we were intaking it.
So just
go ahead.
So just quick, for bumper material, we noticed some teams were talking about using this nylon material that's slick, but we found during testing, you can see on the video on the left here, we put the nylon material on the right side of the robot, then put the normal bumper material that's like a fabric, it's softer, on the other side. And we tested picking up like consecutive balls really fast. And we found that the nylon was actually too slippery because people wanted to use it so you don't run over the ball. But we found that with the nylon, the ball would like stick around and get rolled with the intake. It's kind of hard to explain, but in the end, we found the normal fabric was actually more beneficial for us.
Yeah. And kind of with that, we tried to, so we made all our bumpers out of normal material because that gave us these results. But another problem the teams were having was that they'd actually run over the balls, which is something that we didn't really have trouble with. And that's kind of due to the low center of mass with the like very limited shaking, which is kind of why we went that. And then just about the intake, we have all the axles running together. They're actually bolted together on a 2-to-1 reduction straight from a Neo. And we found that that speed is what kind of gave it the really fast touch pickup that we were looking for. And it's of course piston extended and retracted. So you can kind of see in the in a few other videos the intake going up and down.
We go to the next slide.
Yeah.
I guess we're kind of low on time. Just to hang really quickly, it's a really light mechanism. Total, it's about 5 pounds. And we just put it on the back of our 4-bar. So one servo motor releases a steel wire, which causes, it's kind of a 2-part system. You can see in the video. First, there's a folding part that extends. And then once that unfolds, constant force springs bring up the linear part. And then we just hook on with the hooks and pull the 4-bar off. And that's it.
Hold on. Is that dude like just holding the bar up that's holding up the robot?
Yeah.
Robert, is that you?
Yes.
Okay.
We didn't really have a big setup to hang on, so we kind of put a piece of plywood in the hole and held the bot up.
Can I say that your programmers had like a really smart solution for the ball return, and your mechanical people had a less smart solution for hanging?
That'd be a good statement. Yep.
All right, let's keep going.
Yeah, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so just really quickly, the programming. So on the shooter, we use the Limelight. Initially, we were using a Raspberry Pi, and we got it working, but we had some connection reliability issues. So we just got the Limelight, and super simple, took 10 minutes to integrate with the software, and that was it. So the turret itself, it's running a PID loop, and a lot of people use the PID loop from the Limelight, which runs at 90 Hertz, but we're actually using to control the PID, we're using the encoder on the Neo 550, which is running the belt. So 2 advantages, it runs at a faster cycle time, so we can use the higher resolution image from the Limelight, which gives us 30 frames per second, but then we compensate for that in the code with using the motion of the robot and odometry. But that gives us higher resolution, more accurate 3D pose estimation. And by running the PID on the encoder, it lets us do that and have the turret track as we're moving. And the turret belt, we mentioned that it's just held on with friction. There's no actually teeth. So if there is slippage, it doesn't actually matter. It doesn't affect us because we're always measuring relative to the current turret position. And we have a magnetic zero. We have a magnetic limit switch that zeros when it hits a certain position so that we know where the turret is at all times on the field. And we use the gyro as well during auto. So the hood, it's continuously variable. We noticed some teams like 2056, they did like a 2-position hood. We decided to make it continuously variable because we want to consistently get it in the 3. We want to consistently get 3-point shots, and even if we're getting played defense. So for example, at Humber, there were a lot of times where we're close to the trench, the initiation line, and we were shooting 3s, and then another bot comes from and pushes us, and we're trying to pushes us forward a bit. But since the hood has very little, it can make very fine adjustments. It accounts for that, and we can still get 3s even if we just move 10 centimeters or 20 centimeters forward. The flywheel, it has 3 velocities, and they're pit controlled. And we found that a slower velocity closer to the trench is much better because it makes the shots more consistent, because it's much faster to speed up once a ball leaves, to speed up to your slower velocity than it is to speed up to a higher velocity. And the hood and flywheel speeds automatically readjust as you're moving, and it's extremely fast so that we can shoot whenever we want. The indexer has a photoelectric sensor, prevents jamming, and we've never had jamming issues once we put that sensor in. So I'd strongly recommend it. Initially, we weren't using it. I don't know why we decided to not use it for some reason, but once we put it in, it made a huge difference. And the auto, it's simple and reliable. We're going to make it more advanced later on, but we didn't have much time. So we just made it extremely simple, closed loop, straight movements that use the encoders and also have velocity. They follow our velocity and acceleration constraints. And we have a 5-ball auto, which is consistent.
Okay, so another thing that our team really highly values before we get to the video here is our scouting and strategy department. So ever since last year, we've had a lot of focus on designing a really strong app that has a really good strategical interface. And both years I've been leading the team on that. And this year we had some other students help in the design process with coming up with really unique, innovative, and effective ways to get all kinds of information about teams that we thought would be useful to guide our strategic decisions throughout our competitions. And it proved really successful this year so far. So if we could just play the video so you can get an idea of how the app worked this year. So there were kind of different interfaces you could use to record different things from a team. So during a regular match, this is the screen that you'd be using. So you'd input information about the team, and the big box in the middle kind of allows you to track how a robot moves throughout the game. So every action a robot takes is tracked by both its position on the field and the time at which that action occurs. And as you can see, we were able to record the kind of shots that go in, when pickups occur, and where they occur, therefore, and actions like when defense starts or when your bot malfunctions on the field or when they attempt to do rotation or position control. And all of those things are tracked in a really kind of effective way that allows us to recreate the field and each team's individual movements throughout the match extremely accurately. So we know we can actually watch back the field like we were watching an actual video of the match, and we can see every robot individually, and then we can also get numerical data and comment data about them. So we have a really fully formed idea of how that team performed. As well, we had a really great system for how we can control mistakes that are made before they go into the system, because of course, with a system like this, there's going to be lots of human error. And this app allowed us to counteract that and fix it before it went into the database. So the information we got would be almost entirely perfect when it got in there. So then, as you can see here, these are all the different kind of categories that we recorded, and everything was sortable. So we could determine if we want to say a really good defense ball, we just click on defense quality. We see, oh, these teams are really strong at defense. Let's look into their comments to see exactly how they perform. And this was our heat map. So we could see where teams would choose to shoot from more frequently and under different conditions like defense or if they're undefended. We can compare things like that. And this is just some data we got from scouting the Durham Regional. And this is an idea of how the playback functions, which we'll get a bit of a better idea later on, but it allowed us to see exactly what actions occurred at any point in the match for every single bot, which was a really unique and really successful system, as I'm sure our strategy department can attest to. And also, of course, to fit in with this, we had a decent pit scouting system that helped us in the early game for the first few matches before we got a lot of really strong scouting data, because every team has to start somewhere when we get to a competition. And as Naween mentioned the other day when he was on, there's a link that you can see on our team site where you can look at the app, you can make an account, and you can get all this information and more on our team site. So if we can go to the next slide. Sorry, are we able to go to the next slide?
As we go, try and get moving to the next slide there, I was just wondering, you're recording a lot of data during the match.
Yeah.
Are your scouts able to keep up with that? Like, they must have like bionic fingers just to kind of be tapping all the way through.
We had some really vigorous training processes, as I'm sure a lot of the scouts on our team can attest to. We had something like 20 scouts, many of whom were also doing kind of odd jobs around the team. So we had some people who were in the pit sometimes who were also scouts, and we had them training for hours and hours before they got certified to be able to scout the competition. And I can confidently say, as I was the person who was kind of monitoring everything and administrating it, I could not have been happier with how everything turned out. The scouts were extremely successful in doing everything almost perfectly, despite how many variables, as you said, they had to record. And yeah, it was a really successful institution of the system.
That's the fabulous. I mean, everything that you guys have shown has been great here. It looks like we're back on the app now. So to the next slide for you.
So this just kind of shows you an idea of some of the screens. And if you can just click the video in the top right, that just shows kind of a small snippet of what the playback would look like. And to go over exactly how you guys can actually look into the app and you can use it if the season starts back up again, which we are all hoping it will. On our site, we have access. You can create your own account. You can look at some of the data if you request access. And there's a big technical binder that shows exactly how teams can get set up with this. We are really trying to focus on helping other teams and putting our resources out for everyone else to use in the community. And this is one of our strongest assets that we think can really be effective for every single team out there if they wish to institute a system like this.
Great. And where can they find this on your team website? What's the website?
Team7558.com. And then you'll see a lot of our resources there, like a lot of our CAD files and whatnot, and RoboCart, as well as a tab under the resources should link you right to this page.
Fabulous. Before we go, Param, do you have any final questions for Alt F4?
I don't have any final questions, but I just want to tell you guys that this is a fantastic job that you guys have done on this robot. I mean, this is just your second year, and I can't wait to see what you guys come up with, in future seasons, because this was the one robot where I watched that initial little teaser that you guys had, and I stood up and I started jumping around this room because I was so excited to see it perform. And it has definitely lived up to my expectations. So, huge congrats to you guys on an incredible second season, and I would love to see what you guys come up with in the future.
Hopefully you have more competitions to run them.
Absolutely. We need to see that robot shooting the high configuration. Show us what it's all about. Some low shots, some high shots. It's going to be fabulous. Great scouting app. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for making that available for the community. Malhar has posted a link in the chat, so that's super awesome. Thank you so much, Team 7558, Alt F4, for being awesome and coming on the show. And now let's take a look at this video on First LEGO League as we get ready for our next segment on First LEGO League.
First LEGO League is a fun, exciting, mentor-based experiential STEM program for kids ages 9 to 16. It's an alliance between FIRST, an international organization to inspire young people founded by Dean Kamen, and the LEGO Group. It's one in a progression of 4 FIRST programs designed to foster 21st century life skills and spark kids' interest in science, technology, engineering, and math, so they become innovative problem solvers able to tackle the world's biggest challenges. Each year, FIRST LEGO League teams are presented with a real-world theme, like transportation or waste management. Over a minimum 8-week season, they select and research a problem based on the topic, then devise innovative ways to help solve that problem. Teams also build and program a LEGO Mindstorms robot to solve a series of robot game missions, all while practicing the signature core values, which emphasize good sportsmanship and having fun. If you'd like to get involved with First LEGO League in your area, visit us online.
All right, we're back, and that video is appropriately timed because we're here for another program showcase, and our program showcase today is on First Lego League. And to lead this segment, we got a lot of people on this segment. We've got two leaders on it. We have Annika Pitt, First Canada Program Coordinator, and Dave Ellis, the First Canada Director for both the First Tech Challenge and First Lego League. Hey, how are you two doing?
How you guys doing? Good, good. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. Annika, you've got the maze craze behind you.
Yeah, I was inspired by your earlier conversation about that competition, and we've been talking about it a couple of different broadcasts, so bringing it out today.
All right, so what do you have in store for us today about First Lego League?
Well, we have a great panel of people on the call today. If they want to show their faces, we'll get started with them. So we got Jacqueline and Shanika, and we got Thuvashan and Sean. And the six of us are going to walk through what First Lego League is about. And we wanted to really, because of the audience being mostly FRC students, we wanted to really focus on the idea of how does FLL relate to FRC, and what does that look like for them? What's the experience like, and what things do they take from the FLL experience into an FRC team? So I'll just bring up our slides here. All right. And so first of all, the First Lego League, just as a brief synopsis, I'm going to give kind of a very short version of what First Lego League is in a nutshell, and then we're going to break it out with the various guests that we have on the call today. So there's three components to First Lego League. First one being the robot game, robot design. So there's a challenge given every year based on the theme, and the robot has to drive around on the table, obviously, and accomplish those missions. They do a judging session as well. So they have to go in and do a judging session, 5 minutes with the judges, showing their robot, showing the programming, talking about the strategy that they are using to accomplish the missions. And then they have a question and answer time with the judges on that as well. They go into another room and they do a research project. Jacqueline's going to talk about the research project a little bit more in depth, but they do a project based on the theme of the year and come up with an innovative solution to the problem that they've identified for that theme. And they have 5 minutes to do this really creative presentation. So it's typically not a boring PowerPoint slide like these. It's usually some sort of skit or song or dance or a combination of those things to get across their message. They've got 5 minutes to cram all of that information in, and then they have a Q&A with the judges for that as well. And then the third component that they get judged on is core values. We've talked a lot about core values, obviously, throughout the show, and the gracious professionalism that's portrayed by our teams. And so they go into a judging room and they meet with the judges to do a teamwork challenge. And so they get some sort of challenge that they haven't seen before. They go in, they do this challenge, and the judges are not really looking for them to complete the challenge necessarily, but how do they interact with each other? How do they work collaboratively? How do they solve the problem? How do they manage their time? How do they include everybody in the conversation, make sure everybody's opinions are respected and valued? And so those soft skills that we're hoping that the teams will get out of this experience with First Lego League. So that's First Lego League in a nutshell. And I know, Karthik, I threw this slide on for you because I know you like numbers. So I thought you'd appreciate this. There's a lot of numbers on there, but really for me, the bottom line there, the 21st century life skills or works life skills are the really important ones to me. As Libby mentioned earlier, not all of our students are going to go on to be mechanical engineers or software engineers, but all of our students will be able to take these specific life skills, of working conflict resolution, working together in a team, time management, all of those things that we've talked about throughout the variety of First Canada Live shows that we've had. Those skills, I think, are the really important ones that people take away.
And if I can just add, as someone who's gone through many studies like these on various educational products in the marketplace, these numbers are unparalleled. There's no other program or product that has numbers. Like normally you're seeing, like you're happy to have numbers in the 70% range, for like if someone's released like this new toy robotics program, which is like mainly what I'm typically been looking at. So to see numbers in the high 90s, it's just like your eyes just jump off the page. And the impact of First Lego League is very real, my friends.
Yeah. And I mean, in reality, Karthik, these stats translate across all of the programs. So the same study was done for all of our programs, and they all portray very similar numbers, which is a really good thing to see, that it's not just First Lego League that has these great numbers. all FIRST programs do, and they're all having this fantastic impact on teams. In fact, there's one stat, it's not on this slide here, but there's one stat that shows that even 1 year in any of the FIRST programs has a massive impact on the kids' trajectory of where they go in life. So that's pretty powerful to think of those impacts that we're having on kids, for sure. I'm going to pass the baton over to Annika, and she's going to talk a little bit about the season materials that we use and what's available to teams.
Thanks, Dave. And just to follow up on your discussion there on the statistics, the great thing for FRC teams is if you've got students that were members of FIRST LEGO League teams and they're bringing those skills onto your FRC team, that's going to be a huge benefit to your program as well, because I know a lot of the viewers are from the FRC program. And for any of you that aren't really familiar with the program or who are thinking about recruiting teams or starting a team, just a good idea to know what kind of materials the teams need to get going. So like in FRC, when you have a kit of parts, the FIRST LEGO League teams have a LEGO Mindstorms EV3 core set with which you can build robots like these. And they use those to complete missions on a themed playing field, which I know some of our panelists are going to talk about later. Next year, an alternative to the LEGO Mindstorms EV3 core set will be the Spike Prime, which is different in some ways from the EV3 and has some, maybe some benefits and disadvantages when you're comparing those, but that'll be an option, for an exciting new option for teams as well. And they've also got this challenge set, which I mentioned earlier, this themed playing field with all of the missions on it. And throughout the season, students on teams can record their learning in an engineering notebook. And also the other great resource for coaches is this team meeting guide, because it really scaffolds the learning and helps structure the season. So it's not like you're just trying to figure out where do we even start. It really breaks it down. So again, for any teams out there that are interested in getting this going for the younger people in their community, so that once they get to your FRC team, they have all of those great skills and talents. This is some of the stuff you'll need to help them get started. And I know some FRC teams as well kind of build into their outreach and budgeting to kind of support new FLL teams financially as well. So these are some of the things that funding might be going towards.
Awesome. Thanks, Annika. And we're going to pass it over to Shanika, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her experience with the robot game. She's a longtime ref with us and a former FIRST LEGO League alumni.
Oh, for sure. So thanks, Dave, and thanks, Annika, for introducing us. But so I've been with FIRST since 2009, so quite a long time. And my team didn't actually, or my school didn't have an FRC team, so I spent a lot of time with FIRST in FLL, and then as a team member, and then moved on as a volunteer at the provincial level. So I love that. I think FIRST and the robot game is definitely the most visual thing that you see, which is why it's one of my favorite parts to it. I think it's super duper cool to see kids really excited about what they're doing and loving to talk about their experience. And if you guys can see super intense picture from kids this past year at the West Championship. So you can go on to the next slide. So just an overview, as Annika talked about, of some of the materials that you would need. The EV3, and then each robot is allowed up to 4 motors, as we have listed there, and up to as many sensors as they want. There's touch sensors, ultrasonic sensors, light, and gyroscopic sensors. So teams do different strategies and have different approaches to what mission models they want to build or what attachments they want to build to accomplish their mission. Jump to the next slide. So every year, based on the challenge that's released, there's a new map that's released with a ton of mission models made completely out of Lego that have a purpose or like a challenge to them associated with them. The entire thing is 2.5 minutes. It's the fastest 2.5 minutes of your life. And the kids are only allowed to touch the robot in that red circle right there. And the rest of it is totally autonomous. So they just kind of press go and hope it works out. We jump to the next slide. So again, tons of different challenges. It's really cool to see all the different strategies that develop and how kids will build their robots to accomplish the challenges that they want to based on what's best for their team and what they can accomplish within the 2.5 minutes. So this is one of my favorite challenges from this year. It was they both teams had to kind of end up on the top of the bridge balancing by the end of it. And we had two teams going head to head against each other. It was like the last 4 seconds of the match, and we were just trying to see what was staying on. So like there's a ton of really, really good excitement and encouragement from each other. And at the end of the day, there's just really hoping that they can accomplish that for each other and make sure that everyone can just do the best they can, which is I think why it's so unique and so exciting. So we're going to jump to the next slide. And the next slide is actually a video from Animal Allies. So a couple years ago, Connor Bosey was one of the drivers on the team. This is at Worlds, and they accomplished a ton of different challenges. So we're just going to play that for the minute and a half there.
And I think it's really important for our FRC audience to understand, like, this is autonomous. This is not drivers.
Completely. Yeah, for sure.
And it's just kind of overwhelming. Like, look at the complexity of this robot and everything that it can do.
Right, and like it's so exciting because like sometimes you'll see robots like hydraulics on there, and these kids that are like 9 years old are explaining to me how this works, and like I'm not in engineering at all, so I have like no idea how this stuff works, but it's just like they can explain this and they can explain the programming to you, and it's incredible to see what kind of imagination goes on in these kids' minds, and like they're capable of so much, right?
Right, and the precision and the repeatability, because anyone who's worked on an FLL field is like there's a lot of variability there, and that these robots can just consistently time after time pull off these missions so accurately. And
right, and if you look at like the level of precision, especially in this one of these missions, is like if you didn't hit that the lever and the robot didn't go at a certain pace or stop at a certain point, like the mission was done, right? Like a lot of these are made to be really finicky and require that level of precision to it, which I think is really, like, it transfers really well to FRC, right?
It transfers ridiculously well because you don't typically need that level of precision in FRC, and your autonomous mode's only running for 15 seconds.
Right, exactly, and 2.5 minutes. And again, I can speak from a driver's experience, fastest 2.5 minutes of your life, and super duper cool for sure, but just seeing like how much your robot can accomplish. And this is one of my favorite challenges near the end is the entire point was that you could hang on the wall, acting like as a lizard, right? So mimicking the animal's abilities just with your robot.
All right, so Dave, what do we have up next?
All right, so next we are going on to the project.
Over here in my
And sorry, I don't know what that was. We got Jacqueline on the call now, and she's going to be talking about the project for us.
So hi, I'm Jacqueline, and I'll be speaking about the project. So Dave briefly mentioned and talked about what the project is, but I'm going to give you an example. So next slide, please. So next slide, please. Sorry. So this year, teams were to identify a problem with the building or space in the community. So the FL team that I mentored identified the problem of pedestrian casualties, and they developed a solution of an addition to a traffic light and bollards at the corners of sidewalks with sensors, as you can see in the picture here. And then they shared their solutions with experts, and they actually got to go to present to this Toronto City Council as their experts. Next slide, please. So at the competition, they're given 5 minutes to present and then 5 to 10 minutes to answer questions from the judges. But beyond just looking at how great of a solution FLL teams are able to create throughout the whole project process, FLL participants learn like many skills that are very applicable to FRC. So if your FRC team starts an FLL team, you will inspire students, which could result in a group of students that are interested to join your team and will have the skills that will help your team succeed in the future. As someone who did FLL for 4 years, have been mentoring an FLL team for 2 years, and is now currently part of an FRC team, I have experienced and seen firsthand the growth that occurs. Next slide, please. So focus on just the project, in addition to skills that you learn from the whole FLL process, like teamwork, creativity, and Dave mentioned like time management and conflict resolution. Completely, I agree with that. Some specific skills that I have learned and I've seen other people learn from the project include skills like combining ideas and compromising. In the project, often there's so many ideas on what problem to choose or how are they going to design a solution. And so through FLL, they learn how to combine their ideas together or how to compromise to reach some sort of agreement, which may sometimes lead to just accepting and moving on from your idea, and putting all your effort towards what the team as a whole has decided. And with even more people on FRC teams, letting go of your ideas and or compromising, that's something that happens for sure, making the skill even more important. Another skill is research skills. FLL participants do a lot of research to understand the problem and look at existing solutions and find out how to design their solution. Through this, they learn how to find, analyze, and apply information to the problem they are addressing, and to the solution. In FRC, these research skills can be used to gather inspiration or getting ideas on how to solve a problem by looking at other robots from other seasons, which as I'm part of 7558 as a second year team, a lot of that we had to do, and seeing what aspects you can apply and take. And thirdly, public speaking and presentation skills. This is probably the biggest one for me, and it's changed my life literally. But through FLL, FLL students, they get to practice speaking in front of a bunch of people, and they get an opportunity to receive feedback because public speaking is a challenge for many people. And many students get to learn how to watch their intonation, their poise, their gestures they're using, the speed, and remaining eye contacts with judges. The question section of presentation is often the most challenging parts for the presentation. And some of the questions are really challenging, and students learn how to effectively and confidently answer questions they know, and also those that they're puzzled by. And this is extremely applicable to FRC, whether it's the chairman's presentation or when speaking to the pit judges. My experience in FLL has helped me in both situations, especially for me in the pits, because like you can be drilling something, for example, and suddenly you turn around and there's pit judges there. And so you have to start presenting to them with spontaneous responses to questions. And last but not least, that outreach skills that you learn. So in my experience with FLL, every year, I would write many emails and gather phone numbers of professionals or experts. And I tried writing the most professional email as possible, practice telling these experts who we are, what we are doing, and why their help would be amazing. And in FRC, I found this really comparable to trying to find sponsors, or even seeking out other outreach opportunities. So having that previous experience may be really beneficial to FRC teams. So if your FRC starts an FLL team, you're basically investing in the future.
Jacqueline, this is a great slide. I feel like I want to just like screenshot this and use this everywhere. This is super informative, especially for FRC teams. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jacqueline. It's interesting, Karthik, you know, when we were planning this session out, Jacqueline and Shanika both mentioned how shy they were when they first started First Lego League. And you wouldn't know it from those two presentations.
Well, I mean, the public speaking and presentation skills that Jacqueline talked about, like they are real. And it's crazy because when you meet students who haven't been through First and have been through First, that's one of the first differences you notice, especially for FLL and at these early ages. And it really, the students who have gone through these programs and done these types of interviews are so much better prepared for things like co-op interviews and internship interviews. So there's a lot of cool stuff going in there. It's really working out. Thank you, Jacqueline, for that segment. All right, Dave, who do we have next?
We are bringing up.
And I'm going to make a battery holder, and I'm going to make a pretty educated guess here.
We're going to bring up Sean in a second. Here we go. Sorry, I'm not sure what happened there either, but here we got Sean Spencer, and he is a First Lego League coach in Scarborough and a TDSB teacher to boot. So he's going to be talking to us about his experience with core values.
Okay, hopefully the resolution on the slides will get a little bit better. But hi everyone, my name is Sean Spencer. I'm one of the coaches for Team 40310, and it's the Brookside Bulldogs, which is a school in Northeast Scarborough. And once again, thanks for having me on. It's going to be great to share a little bit about our team's experiences, in the FLL. We're a second year team. We started in 2018, 2019. And I have to say, I know that it's been mentioned by a couple of the panelists already, that the core values are the soft skills, but they're very important. And I don't think that anything, whether it's the robot games or whether it's the research project, nothing can be really divorced from the core values, because they're the underlying essence of the first LEGO League. And I think it's what sets it apart from every other type of robotics type competition. For our school, the FLL experiences with the core values underlining it have continues to be a powerful, formative, and impactful experience. Not only for the students, but we're finding for the parents and for the mentors and for the coaches and for the whole school. So it's been a fantastic, or continues to be a fantastic journey for us in FLL, and it's something that I highly recommend to other schools and my other colleagues at other schools. I think it's a fantastic experience for all kids. And I think that it's a huge benefit for future FRC participants. So I would really, again, highly recommend participation on that. Can we go to the next slide? I know I put a couple of testimonials on from some of the kids, just so that they were able to share with us some of their experiences.
As we get those slides back up, Sean, so you mentioned that, oh, there we are. We'll go right into it.
No problem. Looking forward to your question, Karthik. So here's one student, Amal, and he writes, now I have become a much better person by applying teamwork and all the other core values in other parts of my life. I work much better in group projects, work well with other people, and it has become much easier for me to cooperate with people compared to me before joining FLL at my school. And I always, I was just talking to someone just last evening, and I'm saying, I'm wondering whether it's kind of like the chicken and the egg, which one came first? Was it participation in FLL or leadership? And I think that it's the participation in the FLL that really helped to hone and bring out a lot of the skills that the kids continue to demonstrate. And Amal has become one of our school council grade reps this year, and just continuing to do and contribute really well. Next slide, please. Just going to share with you some of our outreach experiences. And for me, the outreach is it's a win-win situation, and it's about deep learning. I mean, students try out and deepen their knowledge, understanding, and skills through sharing, and they're getting feedback when they're doing this. So again, it's great. And we've been lucky enough to have had a number of outreach experiences. We started off, as you can see, in red, the Malvern Youth Center outreach, which is it's an annual gathering that one of the youth centers in Malvern has, and we were able to go there and, you know, again, share our knowledge and skills with the students. We were also able to go to an Explore, Inspire teacher, Ignite, Explore, Inspire, teacher cadre, where you had aspiring digital learners who were teachers, and share with them about the core values and our experiences in FLL. And we also did the same thing at the Student Symposium. That was in 2019, spring of 2019. And we were also, which I think is really important, we were able to also share that with students at our school, even the primary students, the grade 1 and grade 2 students. We were able to create some tutorials for them and to show them some of the skills and get them involved in a number of things. And I know this year we were lucky enough at each provincial championship to win the Gracious Professionalism Award. But it's the awards are great, but really I think as you'll see again, and we have a couple of more testimonials, it's all of the skills that come along with just the participation and practice to practice involvement on the part of the kids. Next slide, please. So here's a testimonial from Mayura. She's a grade 8 student, and she says that FLL Robotics has impacted me as a student and as a person. I am extremely glad to be part of FLL Robotics, and I'm sure that I can use the skills I learned to become a successful leader in the near future. And again, she's actually part of our Brookside Student Council executive, and she's the secretary. And a lot of the students are really looking forward to participation in high school in the FRC. Next slide. And last but not least, we have a quote or testimonial from Saron, who's our Brookside Student Council president. And he says, as a team, we learned so much. I've learned how to use people's talents to benefit the whole team. Thanks to FLL, my coaches and my teammates, I am ready to join other teams in the future, like First Robotics Canada, FRC, and know I have been trained well going into high school. So yeah, I mean, once again, I can't help but just underline the importance of the core values. I think it's been a really formative, almost life-changing, not to be too dramatic, experience for the kids on our team. They really enjoy it. And I think that the core values really is what FLL is all about.
All right, and thanks, Sean.
Hi, I'll quickly jump in. I know we're running short on time, but I just wanted to quickly highlight one large initiative that's been happening, but it's one of many. It's the National Library Program. Essentially, it's an initiative started by First Team 1241. It's run around 3 times in the year, the spring, fall, as well as the winter term.
It looked like your audio cut out there for a bit, so.
Sorry, what I was saying was I've been fortunate enough to mentor 3 FLL teams. And what I really wanted to kind of summarize here, based on the points that everyone had shared, was the leadership development that these students get access to at an early age, regardless of if they're in the FLL program or if they're grade 9, 10s as mentors for these FLL students. It's very evident as a development tool. And then beyond that, for teams that are considering taking on this mentorship aspect, or high school students that want to run a team, what it really allows you to do is it develops a pipeline of younger students who are eventually going to go on into FRC programs and teams to create a further impact, which brings me to my final point, which is the evolutionary cycle that students go through. And I've highlighted one of my students here, where it's a never-ending chain. You have students who are impacted at such a young age. They have, especially in their formative years, they have such a positive experience that develops them into the people that they are. And truthfully speaking, I'm an FLL graduate myself. I went through the program. I've been exposed to FIRST since 2005. So it's a never-ending cycle. And if you want to learn more, I've left some links on the bottom.
Thank you so much, T. That was really great, and especially summarizing that into such a short package, right? That the library program is really impactful, and it's kind of spread like wildfire across the province. Dave and Annika, do you have any final words on First LEGO League to close us out? Dave, you're muted for a second.
Sorry about that. Okay. Just to say that First LEGO League is a great program that I've grown up to love as a coach originally in 2005, started back then. Remember Karthik at provincial championships. My favorite moment was Karthik saying, our school is a perennial powerhouse. That was like yes, Karthik believes in my team. So that was kind of cool back in 2005, 6, somewhere in there. But anyway, great. It's just been a great experience. And, the kids continue to amaze us every year.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dave. And you'll be back tomorrow to talk about the First Tech Challenge, because we have a great show tomorrow. Param, what did you think of today?
Today was absolutely exceptional. I loved hearing from all the different teams that we had, 5406 and Alta 4. It was fantastic interviewing and hearing from Libby, Kamen, and also now just learning all about this great FLL program. I'm a graduate of FLL myself, and I was actually participated in 1241's library FLL teams back in the day, and it's brought me to where I am now, and it was so incredible to see that.
It is very cool to see. So thank you to all our guests today, sharing about their stories, sharing about the program, sharing about the robots. It's been great. Tomorrow, it's another good one. If you want to learn more about FIRST programs, we have Dave Ellis back to talk about the First Tech Challenge, which is been rebooted here in Ontario, and it's growing really quickly. We got a team showcase from one of my favorite teams, Team 5024, Raider Robotics out of London, Ontario. They are super energetic, and I can't wait for them to bring that to First Canada Live. We got story time with one of our First Canada serial volunteers. He's an FTA and a CSA from mentoring teams 1334 and 1374, Jamie Sin, and another team showcase with FRC team 7476, the EOM Lions. It's going to be a great show. Everyone, thank you for joining us for First Canada Live. Make sure you're staying safe, practicing proper social distancing, wash your hands, and have a lot of fun out there. And we will see you tomorrow. Thanks again, Param.
Let's go.